Thank you for joining us this afternoon to celebrate scholarship. I'm Roxanne Martino. This celebration will begin with Madhav Rajan, Dean, and the George Pratt Schultz Professor of Accounting, providing us with an update on Booth. Thank you for being fellow supporters of students through scholarship at Chicago Booth. We will hear and see the incredibly talented students that appreciate our support this evening, as Madhav will lead an interview with 4 current Booth Scholarship recipients. The students will be happy to answer questions that you may have. Please submit them via the Q&A function. My motivation for supporting scholarship is simple. Booth changed the course of my career. I remain grateful to the individuals that supported me when I attended Booth. Without their support, I would not have been able to attend. I hope that my matching gift will inspire other alumni that care deeply about our students and Booth's success. I find it extremely rewarding to positively impact the student's life and enable those with diverse backgrounds a chance for a Booth education. During the Boundless campaign, I spoke to many fellow alumni who each had unique reasons for supporting scholarship. One was interested in seeing women in finance, another to support evening students, knowing that many employers no longer provide tuition reimbursement for students that continue to work while going to Booth at night. Whatever your motivation is for giving, thank you for your generosity. We are grateful for your support. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dean Rajan. Madhav joined the faculty of Chicago Booth as Dean July 1st of 2017, 3.5 years ago. Prior to Booth, Madhav spent 16 years on the faculty at Stanford University Graduate School of Business, where he served as a senior associate dean for academic affairs from 2010 to 2016, overseeing the school's MBA program. Prior to that, he was on the faculty of Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Madhav?
Thank you, Roxanne, and thanks to everyone on the call today. I want to start by expressing my deep gratitude and appreciation to all of you for what you have done to support students at Chicago Booth through your scholarship gifts. The stars of the evening are the 4 students, so I'll try to be brief. I just want to give a little like a look inside, if you will, into this year, which is certainly a year unlike any other, and a year for which there was no preparation for it. You know, pandemics happen only once every 100 years if we're lucky. So this is not something we ever anticipated. I would say going back at the beginning of this year, we weren't even sure who would get here, how many students we would have in the program or any of those things. And so last summer was quite nerve-wracking. You know, we were dealing with all sorts of scenarios, and I would say at the end of it, we were both lucky and good in the sense that everything did come together very well, and we actually ended up with the largest class that we've ever had. And we also were able to use this opportunity to do a couple of sort of innovative new programs involving the college and the law school, which also started and are flourishing. So despite the serious restrictions, I think it's fair to say we've all tried to sort of figure out how to do the best we can under the circumstances and move ahead. So we had a great number of students come in to Chicago, but at the same time, we've also had students living and taking classes remotely. I remember doing a student event once, and somebody was living in Toronto, somebody was in Virginia, somebody was in Colorado. So we've had students taking classes from all over, taking advantage of the fact that most of the classes are online at this point. We're also noticing that students are taking more classes than they would normally do, since it's easier for them to do it remotely. So these are truly University of Chicago students. They're not wasting any opportunity to get more from the academic experience. Overall, I would say things have gone quite well, although you should really talk to the students about their perspective on that. You know, despite the fact that we haven't been able to be together in person, we've managed to do, I think, okay. Our COVID rates have been very, very low. We haven't had any significant issues on that front. Our faculty have been great. One thing I'm very proud of is we did not cancel a single class, starting with spring quarter for last year. The faculty all stepped up, converted their classes to a hybrid and or online modules, and have gone ahead with the teaching. And for the most part, they have expressed, sort of great happiness with their ability to get their materials out. Certainly in my conversations with the student GBC, those students express great appreciation as well. But again, we can highlight, get more of that from the students here. I would also highlight that many of our faculty have been quite, I would say, innovative in what they have done to take advantage of the fact that they are teaching virtually, for example, by bringing in guest speakers that would have otherwise been hard to get to come to Chicago. I know, for example, Anil Kashyap had Janet Yellen come in as a guest speaker in his money and banking class last year, and so on. And some faculty like Steve Kaplan have been setting up small group meetings, breakfast with students to kind of get to know them well, because he's not able to meet them in person. I would say one of the most gratifying things has been seeing the attitude that the students have brought to this experience. They have been incredibly resilient, incredibly supportive, very constructive in the suggestions and feedback that they have given us. They have organized robust virtual events and conferences, brought in great speakers. I'll let them talk about some of the people they've been able to bring in. From the school side, one of the other positives is that the employment situation has actually been quite good. Many alumni like you have been fantastic when we reached out to you last summer or prior to that to help with students getting internships or with full-time positions. And we're grateful to all of you who help recruit our students. So last year, looking at 3 months out of graduation, 93% of the students had offers, whereas the year before, which was quote the normal year, it was 96. And also the median salary was actually up by 5,000 to 150,000, driven by increases in consulting and tech. For us, consulting continues to be the dominant industry employing our students. I think it was close to 40%. Tech continues to do really well, and actually more people go to tech now than to banking, which I think is very different from when many of you were at Booth. At this point this year, the current academic year, 62% of the second year students report an offer, which is on par with last year, even though the numbers of students is higher because we have more students in the class. And we're also ahead in terms of summer internships. So on the whole, given how bad things could have gone and sort of my worst expectations, things have actually gone quite well relative to that. And again, none of the things that we do, none of the things that we're able to give to the students or would be possible without your support. What you have done in terms of supporting the school with scholarships and in particular the Boundless Initiative has been just remarkable. And it helps us to bring in students with very, very diverse interests and backgrounds. Students coming in, who are military veterans, for example, 6% of the first year class this year are people who have had military experience. We have people coming in from not-for-profit fields who are either going back into the not-for-profit sector or pivoting out into other industries, and other people who come in and just are amazed by the wealth of different opportunities available to them in a place like Booth. So we're very, very grateful to you for enabling the school to be able to attract talented students who might otherwise have chosen to go to a different program. Our goal is that any student whom we feel is talented and who would benefit from the Booth experience should choose to come here. And the support given by all of you through your scholarships goes a long, long way to achieving that aim. So with that, I'm going to introduce the panel. We have 4 students, 3 first years and a second year student. So we have Bhavna Karnik, Dustin Diekman, and Ben Vidal, who are the first years, as well as second year Faina Duke. So I'm going to start by asking each of them to introduce themselves, a little bit about their background, and what they hope to do after Booth. So I'm happy to have them go in whatever order. So maybe I'll cold call Bhavna. Bhavna, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Bhavna Karnik. As a brief background, I went to Duke University for undergrad, and before Booth, I was in healthcare consulting. And now at Booth, I'm focusing in marketing management and strategic management and hope to go into a strategy role. So this summer, I'll be interning in the retail leadership program at Amazon.
Who wants to go next?
I'm happy to jump in. Hey, everyone. My name's Ben Vidal. Prior to Booth, I was working in DC in economic consulting at a small company called Bates White, where essentially we would do math for lawyers in the context of litigation, for those of you who don't know. Really enjoyed my time working actually on the antitrust side of healthcare and telecom mergers. After Booth, I'm hoping, or actually I am going into consulting at Boston Consulting Group.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dustin. Prior to Booth, I was in the Army for 6 years, an Arabic linguist. During that time, I picked up a degree in finance from Wayne State University and went into investment management, where I worked for about the last 2.5 years prior to Booth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Faina Duke. I'm largely from the social sector. My background's in the social sector, so I was a Teach for America teacher out of undergrad. I then went to work for Governor Malloy in Connecticut, and then the Office of Health Strategy, doing health reform initiatives across the state, and most recently worked for Elizabeth Warren down in DC before pivoting, coming to Booth and pivoting into strategy consulting. So I'll be joining Deloitte after I graduate.
So maybe I'll start by asking each of you, when you came to Booth, sort of what were your aspirations for what you would do after business school, and has that been congruent with where you're actually going at this point? So maybe I'll start with you, Faina.
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew actually early on that I wanted to pivot into the private sector, just because of the magnitude of opportunity, the level of impact. I mean, the capital is largely in the private sector. So if I want to make change, if I want to make a real impact, I need to be able to maneuver and understand how businesses work outside of just government. And so consulting was a great way for me to do that. I'm going to get breadth of experience. I'm going to get client partners that I just wouldn't have access to as someone working in the public sector. And I'm going to be able to also have access to technology and initiatives and things that capital can buy that the government sector is just a little bit more behind on. So Booth has been incredible in allowing me to pivot and be competitive for a consulting role.
Thank you. Dustin?
Yeah, sure. So I came to Booth with the goal of going back into investment management. I love the field and I wanted to go back into it. And I thought Booth was the perfect opportunity for that. The amount of investment managers that come out of Booth are incredible. And I thought, why not go to the school where the alumni are writing the books I'm reading? And so far, that's what's been the goal. I've been able to talk to a ton of people in the industry, and we're just starting sort of the second cycle for the investment management recruiting cycle. I've been able to talk to a ton of students who are really interested in the field as well, learned a lot from them. Second years and alumni have been extremely helpful. And part of the reason I wanted to come to Booth was I wanted to improve my quantitative skills, and I've done that for sure. So it's been a great experience so far.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, so I would say that the idea of transitioning into management consulting and going to business school actually came about at the same time for me. Working in economic consulting on those healthcare and telecom antitrust cases that I mentioned, I quickly came to realize that the firms that were doing the strategy work that I found really energizing were firms like the Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey and Bain and Deloitte and the like. And so that was the inspiration initially for coming to business school. And as I said, I will be going to Boston Consulting Group and have gotten a ton of support from second years and the school and professors along the way.
Thank you. Bhavna?
Yeah, so I came to Booth with 3 main goals. I think academically, similar to Dustin, I wanted to challenge myself in terms of my quant skills and my analytical skills, and Booth has delivered 100% on that front. I've been taking classes like data-driven marketing and new product services lab, and I've just absolutely loved it. I think my second goal was to grow my leadership skills. So for me, Booth was unparalleled when I was looking at the Harry L. Davis Center for Leadership. And so I'm going to be a lead facil next year, and I'm so excited about that opportunity. And I'm excited to be able to take other leadership classes like Leadership Studio and Leadership Practicum. I think finally I came to Booth to kind of grow my social impact sector knowledge. So I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and I've been working closely with an organization called Smile Train prior to Booth. I'm on their Young Leadership Circle board. And so I'm so excited to join programs like Board Fellows and take the social impact practicum at Booth coming up. So yes, Booth has delivered on all three fronts, and I've been really excited about it.
So one of the questions that came in was asking, are all of you in the full-time program? Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. And all of you are, right? Yeah, right. Your first or second years. So you all talked about why you came to Booth. Has anything surprised you about Booth which you didn't know before, or just, yeah. So anyway, Bhavna, why don't you start with that? What has been surprising to you about your experience at Booth?
Sure. I did not know how many awesome speaker series we were going to have from alumni. So just yesterday, we had Eunice Kim come and speak to us, who's at Innovation at Netflix, Anne McKerngy at Pernod Ricard, just impossible and unbelievable conversations with alumni. And it's just been really awesome to be able to hear them speak and learn from them.
Ben?
Yeah, I would definitely second that. And I guess I'll cop out a little bit because my answer is sort of the pay it forward culture, which I'm sure everyone's heard and you know, you hear often in the context of an MBA program. And so it's a cop out because you said, did you not know about it before? I knew that I could expect a pay it forward culture. I think every program that I spoke to liked to brag about their pay it forward culture. But coming into Booth, again, I expected it, but I didn't really realize what it would look like. So in short, it's been really incredible. For example, I think it was the first weekend that AMBA, which is the African American MBA Association, with HABSA, the Hispanic American Business Students Association, put on a virtual event that was just meant to, you know, impart all of the knowledge that the second years had to first years that they had wished they'd known when they came in. And so, you know, I walk in the door and in the first weekend, I'm getting all this great knowledge and got to, you know, meet outside in a socially distanced and safe way for a brief toast afterwards. And that's just, you know, one example of the pay it forward culture. And from that point on, it's really exploded through, you know, consulting, recruiting, support, and people that I've met along the way, just being willing to go above and beyond to make sure that we feel supported and have advice whenever we need it.
Dustin, add something?
Yeah, sure. So second what Bhavna said, the amount of opportunity is almost overwhelming. Like I find myself wanting to like go to all of these events, and I have to budget my time appropriately because there's not nearly enough time. And then just the amount of access that going to Booth gets you is very surprising to me. I mean, just today I was reading about an event that I got to attend in the national media and some remarks that a speaker had made there. And I just thought that was so cool, you know, limited capacity event. And I had primary access to it. So yeah, that's been really cool.
Raina?
Yeah, so I've actually been pleasantly surprised by the international nature of the student body. I didn't realize that we had such a large contingency of international students at Booth, and I've really enjoyed that. I mean, you know, I've had classmates and gone to random walk trips with, you know, people from Saudi Arabia that are doing a family business there, or you know, someone who's doing consulting and lives in Ecuador, or you know, someone from Russia who lives there and is now going to Booth. Like that has been really extraordinary, because I think part of the learning is definitely the classes and the top-notch professors, but a lot of the learning is ourselves and what can we learn about our different experiences, our different work and personal backgrounds. And that part of the learning I didn't anticipate and has been really, I've been pleasantly surprised by.
So maybe let me stay with you because you mentioned classes, professors. What has been your favorite class or professor so far?
So many. I think the one, and maybe this is recency bias, but I'm taking leadership
Very
studio.
good. I like that.
I'm taking leadership studio with Harry Davis this quarter. So that's been just incredible. The approach of that class is more of like a lifelong skill. Like, yes, I could learn some of the more technical skills in other booth classes, but this is like fundamentally, how do you practice being a leader? Like, what are some skills I can actually use to practice leadership? And the basis of the class, and some of you may know this who have taken it, but you create like a persona character that you want to practice. So mine is the character I'm practicing is the storyteller. So how can I tell an engaging story in an audience? And so you almost pretend you're an actor, and what kind of characteristics and what would that character say, and okay, go practice it. And how do you then become that and be a better leader with a diverse set of personas? I mean, simple idea, but extremely powerful, and getting to practice it with someone with the background is like Harry Davis has been really phenomenal.
So I should say to the audience, the leadership curriculum is relatively new at Booth. So we started it just about 3 years ago, and it's great to hear that it's flourishing so well. Thank you. Dustin, favorite class or professor?
I'm actually going to cheat here. I want to answer a different question about classes. Bids came out today, and I found out that I was going to get to take sports analytics, and I'm a huge sports nerd, so I'm super excited to take that class next semester. Yeah, I think it's gonna be great.
And who's teaching that? Do you know, is that John Huizenga and Kevin Murphy?
Yes, that
Okay.
is.
Excellent. Ben?
Yeah, I really enjoyed marketing strategy, which I took in my first quarter, mostly because I would say I didn't really fully understand what marketing was, right? It's a very broad field, I would say. And going through the class with Professor Anita Rao, I should say, it was just really cool to be able to learn one thing in one class and then, walk through the world and be able to apply what I was learning to things that I was seeing and just say, aha, that makes sense. And I can, flex that muscle and understand how to think about those things in a business setting as I, continue to navigate the world. And then, so those were the first two main reasons. The last reason was that as I was going through consulting recruiting at the same time, a lot of the frameworks and problems that we were thinking about were directly applicable to some of the problems that I was practicing during the internship or in anticipation of interviews. And so I found it to be really helpful and practical and inspiring.
Bhavna?
I have two. So the first is, Dustin, you might be a little bit jealous of this one. I'm in new product services lab with Professor Middlebrooks, and we've had the chance to use design thinking principles to apply it to a new service. And I've had the chance all quarter to work with a pro sports Chicago team. I can't mention which one, Dustin, but we'll talk. And also the other course I've absolutely loved this quarter, which I never thought I was going to take, is corporate governance with Professor Chikazian. It's a class that teaches you how board of directors work and how the CEO is evaluated. And it's so awesome to be able to understand how companies work at a strategic level at that 360 view. So both of those classes I've really enjoyed.
So Chikazian is Dennis Chikazian, who's of course a Booth alum. So on that team, have you been able to connect with alums while you've been a student at Booth? Bhavna, maybe just if you could speak some more about that, it'd be great.
Sure. So virtually this year, for sure. But I have had a chance to talk to a lot of alums. So my interactions with alums have been, I would say, threefold. So the first is career advice as I was going through recruiting back in the fall. The second is I want to study abroad next year in the winter quarter. So I've had a chance to talk to a lot of alums who applied and studied abroad when they were at Booth. And the third is through speaker events, through clubs. So I've had a chance to hear from a lot of alum through those events.
I'm happy to open up to any of the three of you. I don't want to necessarily go in order. Have you had connection with alums? Have you been able to get connected when you needed to? Whoever wants to take that on.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's been great. Not something I've been used to from my undergrad experience. The amount of people who are willing to talk to you in positions which are much higher than I would have expected to talking to, it has been really, really great.
Yeah, and I'll just second and third, everything that has been said. For me, it was mostly in the context of recruiting again, going out and talking to people at a number of firms. I'm going to be in the Chicago office, so talk to people in Chicago offices, and almost all of the firms had a big group of boothies that were very proud. And after my first interaction with an alumni, I thought, oh, this person's just really nice. They want to do everything to support me. And then after, the second, third, fourth, fifth interaction, I realized that boothies are just proud of each other and want to support each other in any way. And so it's been really inspiring to see and be a part of, because similar to Dustin's point, I didn't quite have that experience in my undergrad.
Yeah, I would echo Ben. I spoke with a lot of alums during consulting recruiting, and going out of their way to kind of lend a hand, give advice, introduce me to people. The other context is I'm a board fellow this year. Actually, last March through this March, so it's almost coming to a close. But did a full year being on the board of an elementary school in the south side of Chicago, helping them a preschool program as part of their kind of K-8 curriculum. And someone that did the board fellows previously was a Booth alum. So it's like running into the Booth alums everywhere is really nice, and kind of seeing, what can it look like for me 5 years out. So he actually moved to the Northeast since being a board fellow, but the board loves him so much that they asked him to stay on. So he calls in and is continuing that work. And so that's been really pleasant, kind of seeing what the alums are up to and what my path can be after I graduate.
Thank you. So one of the positives I would say with COVID has been the ability to do more virtual events with alumni. Bhavna was mentioning that we've had many more distinguished speaker series, and many of the centers have done some more too, which has been a positive. There have been some questions about asking the students, what has the social side of the experience been for you? And what are some of sort of the innovative things that y'all have been doing to be connected socially? Faina, maybe why don't you take that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Zoom meetings. And part of it is easier in some way, because it's a lot easier to put a call on the calendar when it's just a Zoom call. You just have to get off your couch and sit on your chair and turn the computer on, versus maybe taking the train down to campus, for example. So there's been a lot more, I think, collaboration, a lot more team group meetings. So that's helped a lot, I think. So in a way, it's helped connect you in ways that you wouldn't in those settings, like class group meetings, that maybe you wouldn't have had 2 of them or 3 of them in that week. You maybe only would have had 1. So it's actually increased the interaction in that case.
Anyone else want to take that on? Dustin?
Yeah, sure. So one thing was, I can't remember which organization organized it, but I was able to do a scavenger hunt. It was all outdoors, all COVID friendly. And I came here with a partner, and we were able to meet another couple and make great friends with them. And so just making, staying COVID friendly while getting to socialize, it was a great event. And I learned a ton about Chicago. And I learned about stuff that I've been living 500 yards from for 5 months now. I didn't know was there. So that was cool.
I'll second Faina on that point. Is I'm a big coffee lover, so I'm on the coffee club, and they've done a lot of incredible fun virtual Zoom events. And so we had one with Metric Coffee just a couple of months ago, where we got to do a coffee cupping event with coffee from 3 different countries around the world. So there's been a lot of innovative ways that clubs have kind of figured out ways to have social interaction. So it's been a lot of fun.
Ben, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I would say, I guess, 2 events that I've really enjoyed that I think exemplify my experience so far. One is the AMBA HABSA retreat that I mentioned in the beginning of the year, the first weekend, which was innovative and fun in that, we got to learn a bunch of stuff, and then at the end did a safe, socially distanced cheers outside in one of the nice parks downtown. And then the second was similar to one of the coffee events that Bhavna just mentioned, which was during Black History Month. The Belgian Club partnered with one of I think it might be the only Black-owned brewery in Illinois, just outside of Chicago. and we got to have, you know, some free beer, taste test some of the beers from the brewery, and the owner of the brewery was just talking us through his experience and walking us through his brewery virtually at the same time. So it felt like we were actually, you know, there walking through it. And so I thought that was innovative, and it was definitely very fun.
So this is a question just for the second year, which is what are your hopes, expectation for the remainder of your time in the MBA program? So Faina.
Well, it's funny that you should ask now, because classes, you know, we're just now picking classes, so that just ended. So mainly on my mind is, how am I going to take 15 classes in my last quarter, I believe. So that's been incredibly challenging. You know, I want to, there's so much still I want to do at Booth. It's almost like I wish I could be here for another 3 years. So but I think in the time I have left, it's just, you know, how can I continue to get the most out of the academic experience, especially, you know, maybe I can audit a class, maybe I can sit in, maybe I can go to more speaker series than I've been able to go to previously. Just soak it all up before it's over. And that makes me incredibly sad thinking it's about to be over, but it seems like a very short amount of time that I've left. So it's the courses and the speaker events and just the wealth of information that's coming out of Booth. I wanna soak it all up before I graduate.
So we have a couple of questions from our alums. So I'm going to ask the question that Nick Alexos sent in, which is, share your exposure or perspective on the Polsky Center, and sort of, you know, related to that, what has your exposure been to the university at large, other than just Booth? Anyone want to go? Who wants to talk about Polsky or any of the, I mean, Polsky, I think, is an example of just a university-wide center, which of course started at Booth. But in general, have you had much connection with other parts of the university other than Booth? Anyone want to go? Okay, Ben.
So I'll just hop in. I personally haven't had a ton of exposure to Polsky, although I do, or I am aware of lots of the events that they put on. I believe I've been taking advantage of some of the speaker events, as everyone's touched on so far. And, you know, I try to go to at least a couple a week. And so I can't pinpoint which ones were put on by the Polsky Center, but I would imagine a number of them have been. I'm also going to cop out on this slightly because I haven't had a ton of exposure to the other parts of the university so far, but I have an excuse, which is that consulting recruiting was pretty rigorous. And I know I've talked about it a lot, but that's because, you know, it's been half of my experience so far, but certainly I'm planning to get as much exposure to some of the other opportunities that the university has from here on out.
And I can jump in. So I actually did the New Venture Challenge in the spring quarter last year, and the Polsky Center is really heavily involved in that, obviously. So had a lot of interaction with them through that. So that was an incredible experience, probably one of my highlights at Booth. You know, I joined a team that was working on the new software product, and we developed the entire go-to-market strategy, you know, financial model, sales pitch, and we ended up getting 5th place in the NVC, and, you know, getting some money for the company. So that was incredibly rewarding. Polsky does a great job in like helping facilitate the NVC, so that was great. And then in terms of getting exposure to the rest of University of Chicago, this is my second time at UChicago. I came here previously for a master's in social sciences, so I actually had a lot of exposure to the other part of UChicago, and I came back because I love it so much. So I'm very familiar with the other parts of UChicago and love interacting with it.
Okay. So I have a 2-part question. One, the first part that Subhash submitted. How do you plan to stay connected with Booth once you graduate?
I can kick off that one. I hope in a lot of different ways. I think first, and Ben mentioned this, kind of like give it back culture. I hope that as I went through recruiting, that I'll be able to connect with current students, to be able to help them as they try to navigate their careers and have questions about their academics. And so I hope that I can be a source and a help as I move forward. I also want to stay connected to a lot of the different centers. I think that's what makes Booth unique. I think the Leadership Center, Rustandi, I really hope that I can stay connected with those centers and continue to engage through events that they put on, even when I leave campus. So I hope that's how I'll stay connected.
Anyone else? Yeah,
Yeah,
Ben?
I would echo obviously the first part. Certainly would love to continue to get involved in recruiting after I leave and pay it forward after I've left. And then secondly, I mentioned I'm a member of AMBA. Really excited that I'll be a co-chair for the next year, and I'm in the process of thinking of new ways to build on all of the great things that my former co-chairs have done, but also think about some new ways to continue to get involved in the greater U Chicago community and Chicago more generally. And I think that hopefully we'll put in place some things that will allow us to all continue to stay connected after we leave. I know just one quick example is that, again, during recruiting, a couple former AMBA members offered their time to us on their weekends, and it was just an incredible experience to see them being willing to continue to pay it forward. And so I definitely want to emulate that.
Yeah, so one of the questions that had come up before was sort of, while, this is from Philip Kepler, while you're building your new careers, first of all, congratulations to all of you, great stories. While you're building your new careers, what are your plans to give back? And which I think a couple of you have talked about. I don't know if either Dustin or Faina want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, like they've both said, I think helping new students find their way in the career and trying to guide them as much as possible would be really a dream scenario for me, just because I like giving unsolicited advice. Maybe no, I just enjoy helping people, and like I said, I've gotten so much help since I've gotten here that I would feel awful if I didn't help the next generation of students. So there's some former students did like general panel roles early on in recruiting, which is something I'd be interested in. And anything down to like, speaking one-on-one with students that come after me. Anything I can do to help.
Yeah, and the generosity of the donor that's really helped me choose Booth and be able to come here has kind of put me in this role, gave me this goal that I want to do that when I graduate, after I have more years in as a consultant and beyond, to be able to financially help. My background, I immigrated to the United States after the collapse of the Soviet Union. My family grew up poor. We lived in public housing. I would have never thought I would go to a place like the University of Chicago. And now, because of the scholarship support, I don't have to think about, paying down student loans for the next 50 years. I can think about building generational wealth for my family, my siblings, my parents, owning property for the first time in our family history. So that the meaning of the scholarship and the support to both me and my family, like, I know the impact of that. So to be able to give that to someone else is going to be one of my goals as I graduate and think about, now that you've become more successful, what can you do to pass that on, pass that amazing gift to someone else, knowing how impactful it is.
Thank you, Faina. So one of the questions related to what Faina said is, were the scholarships a factor in your decision to attend Booth?
For me, the answer is absolutely. Coming out of like application season, Booth was my number one choice. But when it came down to like evaluating my offers, I wanted to go to Booth, but the fact of the matter was, because of the way Veterans Benefits works out, it was going to cost me a lot more money to go to Booth than it was going to cost me to go to the other school I got into. And I really wanted to go to Booth. So the scholarship completely changed my decision. I would not be going to Booth today without a scholarship because the gap was just too large. I couldn't justify it to myself. You know, growing up, you know, having debt affected the choices that my family made, and I didn't want to have that sort of hanging over my head. And so the scholarship helped tremendously and bring me to Booth and just making me so much more relaxed while I'm here, not having to like constantly worry about, you know, how am I going to pay down this debt when I get out of school. So it's been very helpful.
Ben?
I would echo much of what Dustin said. The same sort of framework of Booth was, of course, my number one choice for a number of reasons, but had some other offers when it came time to decide. And the scholarship really just made everything easier for me. And it was kind of a beautiful moment. And so very thankful for it. And I think I saw in the chat, the second half of that question, sorry to get ahead, was, you know, how has it affected your time while you're here? And I think that's, you know, related to what we've all touched on, specifically as it relates to like the pay it forward culture. It's just been very inspiring to, you know, serve as an inspiration or a constant reminder even that we need to contribute to the Booth community and make it a better place, just as, you know, the people attending this call have by donating.
Thank you. Bhavna, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to echo exactly what Ben and Dustin said. Booth was a top choice for me. And not only was it the financial factor of sitting there and seeing that less of a financial gap, but it honestly also motivated me more as I was going through my decisions, and to see that someone out there believed in me and thought that I deserved this scholarship. It was a motivation for me to say, I'm not only going to choose Booth, I'm going to come in here and do as much as I possibly can to make the most of this so I can be that person someday to give back. So it was a motivation too. So thank you.
Thank you all for those great answers. So one question Dean Cornett wrote sort of related to that is, as you look at other schools that you were thinking about, or other schools that you just know about, are there things you see these other programs doing that we should consider doing as well? Or the other way, sort of, what are we doing that's distinct and better than what you've seen or heard about with other programs, to the extent you know?
So I can speak to that a little bit. I think, and I mentioned this earlier, I think the leadership curriculum really sets Booth apart. I know that Dean Rajan said that it's new, but the studio that Faina has already talked about, and the practicum, and being a lead facilitator, being able to teach a class your second year, I think really set Booth apart for me. And I think the second thing that in my mind sets Booth apart is the lab courses. So I know some of the peer schools do have those lab courses, but the social impact practicum, to be able to go to India, I know during COVID, some of that has changed, but having those lab courses and work with companies in the Chicago area and globally, I think was very unique, and only a few of the peer schools had it. So those are the two that come to my mind immediately.
Yeah, the other big difference that I am grateful for every single day is the flexible curriculum. I don't know of any other program off the top of my head that has a curriculum as flexible as Booth's, right? You have to take just one required course, which is the lead course, the leadership introduction course that Bhavna has mentioned that she'll help facilitate next year. And then you have to take, you know, one course in statistics, one in econ, and one in accounting. And those are the foundations. And then you choose your path from there on out. And so it's just been, you know, incredible to be able to come in knowing what I have an interest in, finance and strategic management, knowing where the gaps are in my skill set that I'd like to fill, and be able to start tackling them from day one. And I think from what I've heard, Booth, that really, really sets Booth apart.
Okay. Dustin?
I just second what Ben said. Flexible curriculum was a huge factor in my decision. Did not want to be like forced into a box. And so being able to choose what I learned has been great for me.
So one question that Meredith wrote is, what do you admire most about your classmates?
I've had a much better experience on group projects here than I have in the past. So that's been very nice. And really it's a combination. Like, I knew everybody was going to be really smart, obviously, but in my interview for Booth, I was my interviewer had worked in the entertainment industry before, and he said one of the biggest things was coming from a place where everybody's trying to impress everyone all the time to a place where, like, people are not trying to constantly impress you. They're just trying to learn. I 100% agree with what my interviewer said there. It's been great to, like, work with people who are very humble, while also being incredibly intelligent and driven. So.
Anyone else want to comment on what you admire about your classmates?
I'm happy to just really, of course, echo what Dustin has said. Everyone's smart, everyone is driven, and also related to what I've mentioned earlier, the pay it forward culture. Just everybody's driven in their career interests, but everyone is driven in terms of making Booth a better place. Like, literally, no matter who you talk to, they are involved in being a leader to pay it forward in some way, shape, or form. I've never been a part of a community that has that collective mentality to such an extent. And so that's something that I really admire.
Others? Okay. So one of the questions that came in earlier before the event was sort of a broad question. So given the sort of dramatic changes that you're seeing in the economic and social climate, what do you see as your greatest challenge or opportunity as you're pursuing your career? Do you want me to cold call? No. Who wants to go for that?
Do you mind repeating the question? I was trying to find it in the chat.
If you look at the big changes happening, you know, with the pandemic and the changes in the economic climate in the US, the social climate, what do you see as sort of the greatest challenge or opportunity as you pursue your career in industry?
I'll take a shot. So, like, I find, you know, I've only been on this earth for 27 years, so I don't know how it's always been. But I worry that we're getting, like, this culture of, like, cynicism where everybody believes nothing's going to be fixed, and we're just, like, in a downward spiral. And so I think, you know, and I don't know how to do it, but I think trying to be a part of making the culture more positive and being more positive about change is going to be the biggest challenge socially for me personally. Because I want to see a better future for everyone, but if we have a culture where we don't think we can change things for the better, it's going to be very difficult to accomplish.
Faina?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we are graduating. We are going to graduate either in a few months or next year into a climate that is going to be significantly impacted and changed because of COVID. And I see that as an incredible opportunity. You know, every decision I made, whether it's personal or career wise, has been because I want to try to make an impact. I want to try to be part of or push change. And so coming out in an environment where healthcare, for example, is completely disrupted, telehealth is on the rise, the way we deliver primary care and specialty care is going to be completely different. Education is completely upended. You know, I have friends who are teachers who their life is completely changed. How is that going to impact education moving forward, whether it's kindergarten or it's, you know, like the Booth School of Business? How's that going to look? And to be part of, I guess, to have my most robust working years in this time of disruption is really exciting, especially when you think about technology and kind of the sectors that are driving the economy, like the ones that I've had experience working in healthcare and education. It's incredibly exciting. It's going to be incredibly challenging, but to figure that out and to think of what's new, what's going to be on the horizon, what can we do that's a little bit innovative, is exciting. I'm honored to be part of that.
Yeah, I would echo both of those statements and really put them in the context of two things that I am passionate about. One is sustainability and the other is diversity and inclusion. And I just think, so in answering the question, I would say it's like one of the biggest opportunities as we continue to build our careers. I think the fact that, at least in my mind, and maybe I'm a little bit naive, both of those things now are not only like make sense, but make sense in a business context, right? We know that we know the power of diversity and inclusion. We know that, you know, diverse teams create stronger, more significant outcomes. And thanks to consulting firms, we know that it adds to the bottom line, right? And we know that consumers are demanding that we treat the world better now, and that sustainability is becoming more economically viable and marketable. And those things present as really exciting opportunities because as I've come about in my life, I've always been passionate about them. So to now be able to enter the workforce for the second time in a time where those things are top of mind, I see that as a really exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Ben. So I think we're running out of time. So I want to stop the questions. I want to thank Bhavna, Ben, Dustin, and Faina for being with us today and for reinforcing everything that is great about Booth and the students here. Right, you're all incredibly thoughtful. You're all incredibly open. You're optimistic about the future, but in a very thoughtful way about, you know, given what's happening, how do we make the best of it and make the world better going forward? And so it's very, very inspiring to see students like you at Booth, and to know that we're training you to be the leaders of the future. So thank you very much for being here and for taking the time to participate and speak to our donors. Thank you. And I want to thank the donors. I mean, as you heard, without the gifts that you have made, without our ability to provide scholarships, there is no way for us to attract these sorts of talented students who might otherwise, you know, simply not have chosen to come to Booth or not even go to business school. So I want to thank all the donors, the alumni, their spouses, their friends who are on today for the support that you have given, particularly in a challenging year like this. The school continues to evolve and expand. Again, we've also tried to use the pandemic as a way to think about what are the opportunities for us. Nick had the question about Polsky. So entrepreneurship and Polsky have become a critical part of the school. The Rustandi Center is doing an amazing job in terms of the social impact and social entrepreneurship sector. And so even though we're still an incredibly strong school in the analytics and in finance, the centers have made sure that nothing sort of falls through the cracks, that the things that really are important to the students in terms of the careers they want to go to are well supported at Booth. And again, we can only do that through your support. Faina mentioned healthcare. So we just started a new healthcare initiative back in July with Dan Edelman and Matt Noto, whom we hired back from Northwestern, leading that. And we think that's going to be a great center for us sort of going forward. One small sort of sneak preview I wanted to give in terms of our ability to attract students. We've done 2 rounds of admissions for next year. We still have round 3 to go. But overall, the school continues to be a top choice for the most competitive MBA students in the world. So we have seen over the past couple of years increases in applications every year. And this year, rounds 1 and 2 are up 20%. So for sure, we're going to set a new all-time record for the most students applying to Chicago Booth. And interestingly, the increase is equally distributed from both domestic and international students. And we've also seen very, very strong metrics for quality and for diversity of the applicants. And it's not just in the full-time program, we're seeing increases in the part-time programs as well, both the evening and particularly in the weekend program. So with that, I'm going to stop, but I'm going to show as I leave, it's a very brief sort of 3 to 4 minute video that highlights a few other scholarship recipients expressing their gratitude. So thank you again for everything you do. We have come through the crisis, I think, in about the best shape possible. And we're very, very excited for what's to come. And I'm really grateful to all of you for making that possible. So thank you again. And with that, let me turn it over to Craig to put the video on.
Leaving the workforce to come back to school was a huge decision for me, And this fellowship allows me to focus less on the financial cost of business school and more on my studies and the professional opportunities that Booth has to offer. I've really enjoyed my time at Booth thus far. The classes are definitely difficult in the best possible way, and I've been learning lots in the classroom, building off what I learned in the workforce at the New York Federal Reserve Bank over the last 5 years. Outside of the classroom, I've joined many student clubs, including the Chicago Women in Business, Outdoor Leadership Club, and the Epicurean Club, to name a few. I'm also competing in a Microsoft case competition with 2 fellow first years and applied to participate in an impact investing competition in the spring. Needless to say, Booth has opened a lot of doors for me, and I feel like I've been growing both professionally and personally since the program started just about 2 months ago. Thank you both for making me being here a possibility. I certainly hope to pay it forward one day. Thanks.
I have a deep appreciation for the ability to pursue my professional and academic ambitions without the full financial burden of tuition. This has given me a continued sense of service as I transition out of the military, and furthermore, a desire to prioritize philanthropic efforts of my own as I move forward in both my professional and personal life. Thank you again. I'm humbled to be a recipient of this award.
I think it goes without saying that such a scholarship allows you to really dig into sort of your inner thoughts and really figure out what it is that you're interested in. As an individual who has aspirations to going back to Jamaica and effecting some economic change, I really can confidently say that such a scholarship really puts me in a position where I do believe that I'm trending closer to being in a position where I can bring about real change for a nation of people. And so to the donors, rest assured that you are very much a part of this journey that I'm about to embark on post Booth, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that individuals, future individuals of the institution can certainly benefit from such a donation. I will certainly pay it forward, and thank you so much for making this possible.
I look forward to bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots. I firmly believe that this scholarship has played a crucial role in helping me pursue my full-time MBA at Chicago Booth and brings me one step closer to my goal of becoming an entrepreneur. I'm incredibly grateful for the scholarship and would like to express my deepest gratitude to both Forte Foundation and the Chicago Booth School of Business. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
I wanted to share a quick hello as my second year at Booth gets underway, and I think about the impact and opportunities I've had this past year. Even with a global pandemic, this past year has been amazing, and I am really proud to be part of the Booth community. I look forward to finishing out my second year strong, focused on giving back to the community that has given me so much. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.